Welcome to the final interview of Drawdown Toronto's Just Eat It Food Waste Challenge. As always, my name is Erin Andrews. I'm the Executive Director of Impact Zero, and we've partnered with Drawdown to share education and different perspectives around the solution of reduced food waste. This week is going to be a little bit different from previous weeks. This conversation will be about how we engage more with the communities and the larger issues around food systems. So let's introduce our guests. Our first guest is Angelina Law. She's an energy management intern in Halton Region. She is a team lead at Waste Watchers, a youth-led, youth-serving group working in conjunction with Youth Challenge International to engage youth to take action on food waste in the GTHA. Welcome, Angelina. And our second guest is Leslie Solomonian. She's a mother and naturopathic doctor. She co-founded Naturopathic Doctors for Environmental and Social Trust, also known as NEST, to support the naturopathic profession to engage in advocacy for the social and ecological determinants of planetary health. Welcome, Leslie. Next, we have Tony Cauley. He's the owner of Be One to Give, a local company that donates excess food waste from businesses and redistributes it to organizations helping to feed food insecure communities. You can think of Be One to Give as the Uber Eats for excess restaurant quality food. Next up is Dr. Antonia Sappong. She's a family doctor and a passionate advocate for access to healthy environments and social justice. We also have Lindura Sappong, who works as a model and actress. As a social media influencer, she works to represent sustainable brands and showcase local entrepreneurs who are taking steps to reduce their environmental impact and empower their communities. Together, Tony and Lynn are Plastic Free Toronto, where they work to educate and inspire their communities to deal with issues of environmental pollution, climate change, poverty, and institutionalized racism. Welcome, everybody. So happy to have you all here. So, since the Just Eat It challenge is coming to a close, I want to say a few words about how our conversation today will sum everything up. While this challenge was specifically about food waste, we recognize the social, economic, and environmental intersections that make this a much more complicated problem than what you buy, eat, or waste on a given day. This is why Impact Zero is so keen to partner with Drawdown on this challenge. While our work is focused on building businesses and infrastructure that Toronto needs to become a circular city, we have shared values with Drawdown about using a holistic approach to sustainability. We use science and data to inform our solutions and have a systems approach to solving the climate crisis. To share a bit more about the Drawdown philosophy, I'd like to share an excerpt from their reference review. So I'm quoting this. To reach Drawdown, we must work on all aspects of the climate equation, stopping the sources of greenhouse gas pollution, supporting and enhancing the sinks of carbon dioxide found in nature, and helping society achieve broader transformations. That is, 3 connected areas call for action. First, we want to reduce sources, bringing emissions to zero. Second, we want to support sinks, uplifting nature's carbon cycle. And third, we want to improve society, fostering equality for all. I think that these 3 areas show how it's not just about carbon, it's not just about finding sinks, and it's not just about making sure everybody has access to food, but we have to think about reimagining our society really on a holistic scale. So knowing that there is not one perfect solution, I'd like to get our guests' take on how there are vast opportunities that exist in Toronto. So our first question, and maybe Tony, Cauley, you can start. Where do you see the opportunities in our local community around reducing food waste?
So to veer away from what I do in my business, household food waste makes up 40% of our national food waste issue. So I think the biggest opportunity is to implement strategies that households are able to use on a daily basis to reduce the amount of food that they're wasting. Consumer behavior it's a personal thing. We can't really go into someone's house and say, no, don't buy that. Or sorry, when they're going to the grocery store, we're not there to say, don't buy that or don't buy that. I think I personally use all the food that's in my fridge before I buy more. So as long as your purchasing habits become more aligned with how much food you're actually consuming and not so much as to the food that you want to consume, then I think that would really change a lot of behaviors when it comes to what people are doing in households. On the other spectrum, where we take in the retail, the restaurants, the manufacturing, the supplies, and all of that, that's where my platform comes into play. We are a food redistribution app. We're Canada's first We're the first to launch it in Canada, which is really great. We launched the platform in 2019. However, and we got a lot of great traction, but then COVID hit us and everybody got shut down. But it actually did me a favor because it allowed me to build the app out to fruition and come back with a tangible product that can actually make those steps happen. So although we were providing the service, we now have a product to provide to clients, and they're able to simply call us through the app and let us know that they have surplus food and we're able to come and pick it up. So from that side, that's always an opportunity for all of that entire, 4 or 5 other sectors that make up the entire food waste issue across the country.
Yeah, awesome. And Angelina, would you like to let us know about your thoughts on opportunities in the local community to reduce food waste?
Yeah, for sure. So I think to add on to what Tony said, for sure, developing that strategy at the household level so that we can align what households can do to reduce overall food waste. Specifically with the Waste Watchers and Food Unity. And speaking from experience with just having weekly conversations with youth, and otherwise known as like kitchen table talks with youth, although a small group of youth being 15 on a weekly basis, we've really realized that having conversations is so powerful. Being able to relate with each other, being able to share stories with each other, and taking that to create content on social media and to raise awareness and to raise education on food waste and food waste management, the tools, tips, and skills that can go along with reducing food waste those learnings have come from having conversations. And it's interesting because it's also given us that opportunity to dive deeper in understanding from a youth's perspective what's happening at the household level. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Maybe Lynn and Tony, do you guys want to go next?
Okay, so I'll start. I find the topic of food waste, let me rephrase. I find the topic of anything involving food it's difficult for me to take off like my doctor hat and my social justice hat when it comes to this topic. And so I often find myself reflecting on the fact that we have this very strange system where we have, 1 in 3 children living in a food insecure house, and also, incredible amounts of food waste. And like, how do you then look at this whole food system that we've created and rationalize anything about it? And then also then like pick one thing and be like, and this is what we should work on. I think food waste is incredibly important. But I think for me, where I spend more of my time thinking about is like, how do we essentially ensure food justice for all, which means like, how do we make sure that people have access to food in healthy environments? Because it is just so much more than just a waste problem or a climate change problem or this, that, and the other problem. So I don't know, I find it difficult to wrap my head around. I think in terms of where I wish we could get to would be like the recognition that our food system at this point is just, it's flawed almost from start to finish. And there are so many opportunities in that whole system to act. But I think if we take out the justice component of it, we really miss the opportunity to do so. So like in tackling food waste, like I love what B12 Give does, where it is like partnering with local communities to improve food security. Like that's so key. And all of these things like community fridges in Toronto, like wonderful, what's that one, that Flash Food app? Like all of these things that are designed to tackle food waste and give people access to food, I'm here for it. But at the end of the day, like we need to reduce food waste, but also we need to make sure people get fed. And the way we're going to make sure people get fed is to make sure that they have access to all of the resources they need so that they can buy healthy, good food, or have access to. I don't even like the word buy, because like, should we be buying things that are essential? I don't know. Like there's just a lot there. So yeah, that was a really long-winded
answer. That leads to my answer, which I actually almost forget the question at this point. But the one thing that I want to contribute to the conversation that everyone has already answered so well is just that like I find a lot of value in like the possibilities of individuals using their voices to advocate for things like food justice and to like advocate for things like having decent living wages and farm care, all those like other related topics, like sort of like there's many things that we can do, but one of the things that I love is like this like using your voice and standing up for things. I think it's important. So that's my little piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that. And it's like, if you think of food insecurity, it's not a food supply issue, it's an economics issue, right? Like it's all intertwined, and that really, I think your answers really exemplify that. So Leslie, I want to get your take on this. What do you think?
How could I possibly add? Yeah, I completely agree with the complexity of the problem and the dialogue between what are individuals responsible for as opposed to what are systems responsible. And it's a question with no good answer because, of course, individuals make up the system. So sort of to pick up on the most recent point, we as individuals, the question was, what do we do in our community? And I think one of the most important things we can do in our community is vote, is speak up, is rise up to make sure that people have access to what they need. As Tony was saying, should people be expected to pay for things that are essential, like a house, like food, like healthcare, when some people have more than they need and other people don't have enough to be healthy? That's deeply problematic. So what do we do within our communities? We encourage the people around us to shift the paradigm and to demand that our representatives pass policy that is egalitarian, that is making sure everybody has the basic necessities. What I will say as a naturopathic doctor and as a healthcare provider in general, and Tony spoke to this, the importance of the social and ecological and economic determinants of health. What's lovely about the topic of food is that there are many co-benefits between economics and the climate crisis and food access and health. So a lot of the basic things that a healthcare provider can do in terms of educating individuals and groups and communities about good nutrition actually are beneficial for the whole puzzle. So if we're talking about eating a more plant-based diet, for example, that is more economically feasible in general, that is more sustainable in terms of regenerative agricultural practices. It does allow for possibly a shorter food supply chain. It does mean less waste in terms of the production inputs, as well as the outputs and the externalities of that food supply chain. And in theory, requires less packaging because if we're eating closer to the earth, then that packaging side of things is addressed. So I guess on an individual and at a community level, by talking about eating a good whole foods, plant-based diet, at the very base of things, that's a really good start. And the more we as a society demand that our food be locally produced, be organic, be regeneratively produced, minimize the packaging, and speak up, that makes a big difference. And we have to do that collectively. And those of us who have power, whether that's social power or political power and economic power, we need to use it to make sure that the system is improved for those who are marginalized.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate all of your answers. I think that, as we've clearly stated, this is very complicated, and there are lots of things to be solved under this umbrella of food waste and sustainability and all of that. But I want to know a little bit more about the next steps that your group, your organization, or your brand is taking with regards to food or food waste. So maybe, Tony, you can start and we'll go in the same order.
So what we're doing now is we just launched the app. The app launched on February the 1st, which is really awesome. It's super exciting. Just to be able to bring this volunteer role to fruition to the point where it's now an app. And it's a revenue generating app, which is really crazy. It's exciting. So we're looking at, one, getting the app out there, getting the food moving. What we're trying to do is to evolve beyond the shelter systems as part of an output. We know that the shelter systems, of course, they need these resources, but eventually there is more food. There is not even more food. There's too much food to go around. There's $49 billion worth of it that's going in the garbage. So there's more than enough food to go around. As you mentioned earlier, income is that issue. Food insecurity, having been food insecure for 3 of the past 4 years, it's because I lost my job. It had nothing to do with accessing food. It was the fact that I didn't have the money to buy the food, period, and stop. So we want to set up systems where, yes, we're able to redistribute, and yes, we're planning to redistribute to shelters, but we want to establish, I don't want to give away too much, but we want to establish something similar to community fridges, where we can set up systems in communities that need resources so we can redistribute to that single spot and then have the community come to that area, or further redistribute from the community within their own intimate networks. So that's sort of a part two to what we're planning to do. Food insecurity, like for those of you who don't know, I was, as I shared, food insecure. I lost my job. I lost my livelihood, actually, not my job, but I actually lost my livelihood. And that process of being food insecure, having to wake up knowing that your first meal of the day was going to be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon was not, let's say, the best feeling in the world, but it taught me what it was like to be food insecure. And the people around us, I know that shelter systems, and I know that they're always in need of additional resources, but food insecurity is a household issue. It's not a shelter issue. It's not, you know, those who are on the street. I was food insecure. Nobody knew. My mother knew. She was the only person I told, but nobody knew what I was going through. My friends had no idea. I put on this facade that I had resources. I don't know how they were able to get, I don't know how I was able to fool them for the entire time, but the process was that I didn't have the resources to feed myself. And being able to pass that situation, that knowledge of the situation onto what I've developed as an app, and then have that app service those communities who are not being serviced now is fantastic. All of those food rescue agencies that are out there that are doing awesome work are targeting the shelter systems and community kitchens. Those organizations don't service the community at large. They service their users. And food insecurity is not just in the shelter system, it's in the communities. So our next step beyond the redistribution part from the grocery stores to the shelters is to establish that infrastructure in the communities that we can redistribute to them and have them come to a centralized location to access food.
That's incredible. That's amazing. I didn't know that was in your plans, and I was like, your app seems like a lot of work already. So kudos to you to doubling down on those solutions. I think that's really awesome. And to find a business case for it as well, to make it something that's revenue generating. I think that speaks to a lot of people's doubts that there is an actual business case that works in doing things that are right and serve communities effectively. So good on you for that, Tony. That's great. So maybe Angelina, would you like to go next for your solution to what you guys are working on next?
Yeah, for sure. So Waste Watchers and the core team, so far we've built that foundation, that small community of youth who are interested and passionate in learning about the solutions and steps that they can take to reduce food waste at the household level. So some of the next steps for us is to continue building that community, and that hub essentially is something that we're looking into to be a place where youth who are working on food solutions and looking at solutions to reduce food waste, for them to be able to come to this hub and access skills, resources, and the network available to support them in their projects and in whatever they're doing. So that's definitely something that we want to scale up with. Another thing that I, on a personal level, want to focus on, and I'm really excited for when things start to, I guess, slowly get back to normal, is to revisit the community that I grew up in, which is the Keel and Finch area, considered in the Black Creek neighborhood, where considered low-income communities within that neighborhood. And I think that for a really long time, just growing up, I've kind of moved into different, I guess, cities and towns for school, and haven't really thought much about the systems in place within my own community, and really thought deeper about what was happening in school, like growing up having snack programs. Why did we have these snack programs in the morning, right? And now thinking again with all the news resurfacing about what's happening within the community that I grew up in, I want to be able to go back and be of service, and be able to go back there with that learning, the learning that I've, I guess, recognize, which is the power of listening to communities and the power of listening to individuals and being able to service my community in that way. So that will be, I guess, an upcoming thing for Food Unity and for Waste Watchers to explore. I'm really excited that for the next 6 months, I'll be a part of the Climate Leadership Program, which is organized by YCI. So I'm really grateful to be able to have the mentorship available to support us in the continuation of Food Unity.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a lot as well. And the emphasis on community and listening to people, understanding what they really need. I think that's something that you and Tony both have kind of touched on, is like knowing what the community actually needs instead of just forcing solutions on people. I think that's a really great, a good approach. That makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Okay, Lynn and Tony.
So the work that we focus on always is education and empowerment, but I think this year what we want to do is take it a step further and sort of work on like reimagining and really like the power of being able to imagine a different world in order to facilitate change. So that goes like within our own lives in terms of like the things that we want to start doing to tackle food waste. We already have been doing, like growing a garden and like putting a little food box outside, things like that. But also just like on a bigger scale, like reimagining how we interact with our communities and how we interact with like the natural world. Like even like Tony said, like, should we have to pay for food? Like that's a question that like needs to be talked about. It needs to be addressed. And like, how do we, you know, move that idea forward in a way that could create positive change? Like another thing that when Tony was talking about, you know, his next steps in like hitting the actual community that needs these things is like, what if it wasn't like I think right now there's a certain amount of, I don't know if it's shame or like othering of people who might not be able to, you know, afford certain things or live a certain lifestyle. And like, what if that weren't the case? Like, what if we just had like giant community parties where we came together and shared our food, like as a way of A, celebrating each other and like also B, redistributing the wealth in our communities. So it's just, there's a lot of, I think where our work wants to, where we want to focus our work on for the next year or so is just really that like reimagining portion and like having these discussions.
I was going to say something, but I don't know that I need to actually. Yeah, I think to her point, I think we both got to the realization that like our politicians are not coming to save us. We used to spend, not that we don't spend time reaching out to our politicians anymore.
Still do.
We still obviously do, and I think that's obviously important. But also they're not coming to save us, right? Like we just recently voted down pharmacare. They voted down, you know, paid sick leave. They've, you know, just like every useful thing that could have happened, you know, our minimum wage is frozen. Like anything that would have, to Tony's point, you know, given people the money they need to buy the food they need, we didn't do that. So fine. Which really, like, I think the next question then becomes like, okay, so how do we make our communities less reliant on someone who needs to come save them? And that's an important question. And I think that is where we need to all focus our energies and efforts, because that's where the power is and we are the communities. So that's all I have to add.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big point. That's a big little thing. But yeah, I think, yeah, the pharmacare was disappointing, especially considering they ran on that, but that's another conversation. But I think, yeah, being like mobilizing everybody, educating everybody to know the systems that are in place is so key, and to know how to fight it and empowering them to do something about it. That's awesome. Alrighty, so Leslie, what do you think about this? What are you guys working on?
So NEST is by definition an organization for naturopathic doctors. So, you know, healthcare providers. Our primary goal is to build the capacity of naturopathic doctors to address the social and ecological determinants of health. So that can look like a lot of things. And so it's kind of tricky to answer that question. So one of our priorities is education, and predominantly that is within the profession and from within the profession. So, we have some continuing education courses that we're developing for naturopathic doctors on some of these topics. I'll be attending an international meeting on planetary health in the spring in Sao Paulo virtually to talk about some projects that can help to find out what healthcare providers do and don't know, skills they do and don't have, attitudes they do and don't have around issues of planetary health, which isn't just about sustainability from an environmental perspective, but it is about justice. It is about all the things that we're talking about in terms of people having access to at least the basic necessities of life. So a lot of kind of academic, educational kind of stuff that we're definitely prioritizing. But I would say that in the naturopathic world, and Tony and I have talked about this in another venue, so I don't think it's unique to naturopathic medicine and educational training, but there's not a lot of education around advocacy skills. And so part of NEST's mandate is to build the profession's capacity around doing that. So all the different strategies we've just been talking about, whether it's political action, whether it's community organizing, it's just not something that tends to be talked about much in naturopathic education. So that's one of the things we're trying to do is both through the accredited naturopathic medical institutions, as well as through continuing education, as well as through informal partnerships and collaborations, just to build the confidence of naturopathic doctors to do a lot of this kind of work. So a lot of folks are interested in food in particular. So, interested in community gardens and helping with doing that kind of work. We know there's a lot of health benefits to getting your hands in the soil and to communing with plants and forest bathing and all that good stuff. And all of that ties in intimately, of course, with food production and really food access too. If we can help people connect to community gardens and reclaim public lands to plant food and grow food and to learn how to grow food on balconies and indoors and so on. That's a really tremendous opportunity. So I would say that education and building skills of advocacy are definitely the primary foci for our organization right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I love to see all the different, like the diversity of things going on, because that's exactly what we need, right? It's like you need some people empowering people to get started. You need some people to be working on some of the systems, other people to be, doing the education. It's kind of like all hands on deck. And that's what I love about like not just the sustainability community, but anyone who's doing like purpose-driven work. It's so inspiring to hear from everybody. So knowing that like this is such a huge problem and knowing that there are so many ways to solve this kind of stuff and there are so many people working on it, in one or a couple words, I just want to know how you're feeling at this moment. Tony, do you want to go first?
How I'm feeling. I'm probably more of a couple words. I would say right now, one, I'm grateful for the fact that this has come to this point, like everything sort of has built up to this point. I launched this business being food insecure and on social assistance, and a hope and a dream pretty much that other people would be into what I was trying to do. So I'm really grateful for all of the support that everyone has put forth, shown me, like yourself, Erin. But there are agencies, just to give a bit, I don't want to call it background, but just to give context to this, I have been approached by different national and provincial agencies looking to support what I'm doing. These people don't know me. They have no idea who I am. When they reached out to me at the point, yes, I had been further on in the process where I may not have been food insecure anymore, and I may not have been on social assistance, but I tasted that literally last year or the year before, because 2020 kind of wipes away right now. But I was from literally 2016 to the end of 2019, I didn't have enough food in my fridge and I didn't have money to buy food to put into my fridge. I had a job, but I was living, I was the working poor. It was a really bad situation, but I somehow persevered and got through it. So as I said, I'm grateful, but I'm also now driven and inspired by that support. The way the the way people in general have reached out and just said, hey, how can we help you amplify what you're doing? You know, it was all surprise. It was organic. It wasn't something I sought after. The appreciation is, yes, of course, I love it. But when I started this, I wasn't looking for appreciation. I was looking to pass food that was in access to people who didn't have the food like I didn't. Yes, I took some home for myself, but I definitely wanted to make sure that other people had some food to eat on a nightly basis. That was strictly through volunteerism. And that was it. That's where this process started. And I was, as I said, I was doing this on my bike. I was food insecure and I was on social assistance. So to be in a position now in 2021 with a product that's been developed, and almost instantly the attention just started strictly through an Instagram page. People just started buying into it. And then City News and then CBC did this massive story on us and put it on their national platforms. So going through that process, as I said, I'm grateful that people still found the platform intriguing. The fact that the federal government reached out to me and said, hey, can we help amplify what you're doing by, giving you an opportunity to participate in a food waste reduction challenge that has the capacity to take your platform national. And I'm like, sure, like, why not? And then the province is offering to promote the platform when they reissue their food and organic waste policy statement to all of their retailers on a provincial scale. Sure, like, I'm not going to say no to that support, but it's coming to me organically. So I am so grateful for everything that's happened over the past 4 years. Had I not gone through the situation that put me on this path in the first place, I wouldn't be here. So to have gone through it, yeah, it was pretty rough, for lack of a better term. But for the outcome of it all, to see the result of what I went through for the past 4 years, grateful is the one word I think I could use for it all.
Amazing. I love it. Angelina, how are you feeling?
Ooh, well, after Tony's story, I'm definitely going to say that I guess the word to sum up how I'm feeling is, well, 2 words, invigorated and excited. Both because with the youth movements that have been happening and seeing just the pressure, right, that youth are putting forward to institutions, businesses, the government, amazing. We just have to keep that momentum going, and we have to be able to keep supporting youth in that way by giving them the support that they need and to listen to them and to put forth solutions so that we can have a sustainable future. And I'm also really excited because I'm considered Gen Y or a millennial, right? And it's really exciting and interesting to see how now with Gen Zs, my cousins who are a little bit younger than me, climate literacy is a thing now. Growing up, they know about the intersectionality of social and environmental issues. These are conversations that they're having. They know what solutions need to be put forth, right? So it's exciting seeing our future generation having those discussions and having those talks and being able to pressure the businesses and governments to make change and being able to force individuals to make change. So I'm definitely feeling really excited and really invigorated. I know that my passion lies within youth education, youth empowerment, and looking at circularity and looking at food systems. So being able to pair the two together, or those things together, and just makes me really excited looking forwards to the future of food unity.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Lynn and Tony, how are you feeling?
I told her she has to go first.
I'm feeling super happy. I feel very hopeful. I feel like, I don't know if I'm just biased and I've just been focusing my attention on places and people that are doing amazingly cool things, which makes me feel hopeful. And just, she reads the news, she listens to all of that. And I'm just here like, I just heard the good stuff. So I'm feeling great.
We're a good partnership.
It's balance is key. But yeah, I don't know. I think just hopeful is the word that I have. Like the amount of change that I've seen in the last year alone, just in the way people are talking about things, the words they use, like the attempts to be more inclusive, the attempts to be more accessible, the realization that certain things are important, the realization that all of these issues intersect. I guess to what Angelina was saying, like I see it in youth, I see it in my own social peers, and I see it in people older than me. I just feel like all of us are slowly, I don't like to use the word waking up, it seems very cliche. But just becoming more aware of each other and becoming more empowered in our own way. That makes me feel very hopeful. So, yeah, the government's not doing anything except for the opposite of what we need, but we're all doing the work. So I feel great.
We make up for it.
I still don't have a good word.
I am feeling many ways. I think
Frustrated. I feel like I read frustration from you.
I mean, often, yes, that would be an apt term. No, I think that's not my main state of being. I think my main state of being actually these days is just, and this is going to sound super hippie, but like just it's radical, but like in the real word, like meaning, where it's like to do with altering the fundamental nature of something, not like someone yelling in the streets. Which, I mean, I love yelling in the streets. We should do more of that too. But I just think we are at a time and a place where, to Lynn's point, like there's so much happening. We just all need to go do the things, and and it'll be great. That's where I'm at. And change the fundamental nature of all this nonsense. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I feel both of those things, the positive and the negative. It's a balance. Awesome. Okay, Leslie, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I was feeling a little worried about being honest, and so Tony, thank you for your honesty. I often feel angry and cynical for all the reasons that have been mentioned. And a number of years ago, I found that the antidote to those very unhelpful feelings was taking action. And Joanna Macy wrote a book called Active Hope. And to me, there is a lot of wisdom in even just the title. And I mean, there's a lot of research and literature out there that says that when we take action, we feel better. And so I definitely have found that to be true in my life. And so I often do feel angry for all the reasons that have been discussed. And the only way that I can avoid wallowing in that is to keep on keeping on. And to the point of youth, it's funny when you introduced me, Erin. I mean, I obviously provided the bio, but my mother was the first thing. And I am a mom who always tell me about the generation names, and it means absolutely nothing to me, but I guess they're Gen Z. I don't know. They were born in the early aughts, and I feel hopeful because of them. And in our house, we are constantly having these conversations. They're schooling me all the time, and I'm schooling them, and we're calling each other in and pointing things out. And that also brings me hope. I feel like any effort I make in my profession or in my community, the biggest impact I hope I will have on this planet is through my remarkable children, and hope that they have a better future than sometimes it seems they will right now. So all I can feel is hopeful. And so yeah, cynical, angry, and hopeful, which drives my action.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And I think everyone here, I mean, all of us are doing amazing things. So it helps to have the realist side come through sometimes. And like we recognize that there are still huge issues to be solved, but yeah, maintaining that hope somewhere. Otherwise, none of us would be doing the stuff that we do if we didn't have a little bit of hope at least. Awesome. So thank you so much. We'll leave it at that then. I wanted to thank all of our guests that are here with us today, and the viewers for taking part in this challenge. I think that we'll all probably take away something different from the challenge, the conversations that we've had, all of the different pieces that have come together. But for me, what is so uplifting, and I've alluded to this already, is just seeing the community work together to support each other and work on initiatives across the city. They all seem different, but they're all connected in this underlying like fundamental need or desire or whatever necessity to change how things are. So I thank all of you for joining us. And for the viewers, I just want to mention to please take a look at the link below. There will be more information about ways that you can get involved with drawdown initiatives, and they'll be posting also some resources that will be living resource documents that will be always changing as things come up. But there were so many partners working on this challenge together, both on screen and behind the scenes. And so imagine if we all partner together in this way going forward to make some big things happen as a community, right? I invite everybody, the guests, the viewers, everybody, to continue the conversation, to partner together, and to build solutions locally to make a better future for everybody. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.